What if you could get a real inside look at a company that's so influential, it's not just, selling groceries, but actually shaping the economic future of a whole country? Today, we're doing a deep dive into Korzinka. They're Central Asia's biggest modern retail chain. And we're digging into their big 2024 annual report.
Exactly. And what we want to do today, our mission really, is to get past just the surface level numbers. We're going to pull out the key insights from this report, partly to understand Korzinka's own success, sure, but maybe more importantly, what their whole journey tells us about Uzbekistan's wider economic transformation. Because this isn't just about balance sheets, it's a story of innovation, yeah, but also social impact and that tricky dance between tradition and modernity, especially in an emerging market.
Okay, so let's set the scene first, because that context is, well, it's everything, right? What kind of economic environment is Korzinka actually working in? Uzbekistan's been called one of the most dynamic in the region. What does that mean on the ground? What kind of growth are we talking about?
Yeah, good question. The report points to some impressive figures. Average GDP growth of 5.8% over the last 10 years. And what's really striking, I think, is that they kept growing even through the COVID pandemic. That tells you something. And it doesn't look like a short-term thing either. Population's expected to go from about 37 million now to 41 million by 2029. And GDP per person projected to jump by over 50% in that same time. That's a pretty strong foundation for growth.
That kind of growth, sustained growth plus the population boom,
Yeah.
usually pulls in foreign money. What did the numbers say about investor confidence? Are people buying into this story?
Oh, absolutely. Confidence seems really strong. Foreign direct investment, FDI, that grew by 71% leading up to 2023,
Yep.
hit $2.8 billion in 2024. And look at Korzinka itself. They pulled in $110 million in new funding. This was from international sovereign wealth funds, Abu Dhabi Uzbek Investment, ADUI, and the Uzbek Oman Investment Company, Uzuman. That deal just finalized in May 2025. It's not just cash, right? It's a big international thumbs up. For Uzbekistan's reforms since 2016, liberalization, anti-corruption, tax changes, even big investments in education, and crucially for modern retail itself as a growth engine.
Okay, so booming economy, growing population, foreign investment. Check, check, check. But the retail market itself, you mentioned this shift from traditional bazaars to modern stores. How far along is that shift, really? Because bazaars are such a huge part of the culture there.
Yeah.
Right, and this is where it gets really, really interesting. Modern retail is still, well, it's still pretty small. Only about 9% of the whole grocery market. That market was worth around 11.4 billion US dollars in 2023, and modern retail was just over a billion of that. The traditional bazaars, like the report says, they're a cultural phenomenon, deeply ingrained. It's not just shopping, it's social, it's community. So Korzinka isn't just competing on price or selection. They're kind of nudging against a whole way of life, which is a huge challenge. But the forecasts are massive. They see that modern retail market growing to maybe $17.7 billion by 2030, and most of that growth expected to come from modern formats like Korzinka. And Korzinka's ambition, it matches that perfectly. They're targeting an incredible 1,000 stores by 2030. That's like, what, a six-fold increase from the 156 they have now? It's bold.
Wow, a six-fold increase, 1,000 stores. That's huge ambition, especially given those deep cultural roots of the bazaars. So let's zoom in on 2024. The report calls it a record year. Did the performance actually back that up? Does it suggest they can realistically hit that massive target?
Yeah, it absolutely looks like a record year. The numbers are strong. UZS 9.4 trillion in annual sales. That's Uzbek som. That translated to 9.3% like-for-like sales growth, so growth in existing stores. And December was even better, 16.3% LFL growth, strong finish. And their online side, Korzinka Go, that saw incredible growth, 188% revenue increase. And importantly, it became profitable, positive EBITDA contribution by September. They delivered their millionth online order by December, too. That online piece is clearly clicking.
Online profitability is seriously impressive,
Yeah.
especially that quickly. But how are they balancing that with the physical stores? Is online eating into store sales, or are they managing both?
It seems like they're managing it really well. It's all about the omni-channel approach. They have 156 stores total right now. That includes their main supermarkets, but also this really successful smaller format called Mahalla, like a neighborhood proximity store. And then they have dark stores just for Korzinka Go. Those Mahalla stores seem key to hitting that 1,000 store target. They're smaller, need less investment up front, so easier to scale quickly. And the report says they're not seeing significant cannibalization. So the Mahalla stores aren't just stealing sales from the bigger supermarkets, they're reaching new customers or different shopping trips. Each one serves about 900 customers a day. That tells you they're fitting into the local neighborhoods well.
Okay, so embedding themselves in communities, not just building big boxes. But how are they actually winning people over? How do you compete with that bizarre experience on, value and trust?
That's a great point. One major strategic move was launching their first price initiative. In Uzbek, it's Yanada Arzon Narks. It's basically an everyday low price, or EDLP, promise. And it's not just a sale, it's a guarantee of the best prices on a basket of over 250 essential items, all the time. Apparently, it's resonated really well, driven significant LFL sales growth, and they say with minimal hit to their margins. In a market where maybe haggling was the norm for getting a good price, guaranteeing a low price builds a different kind of trust. It offers predictability alongside the modern store environment. It's a direct challenge to the bazaar model on value.
That makes sense. Building trust through consistency. Beyond price, though, how are they engaging customers and building, loyalty?
They've put a lot into their loyalty program. It sounds pretty sophisticated. 1.8 million active cardholders, over 2.4 million app downloads. And it's fully integrated, right? In-store and online with Korzinka Go. You can save and spend bonus points seamlessly. And here's a really interesting stat. Customers who use both channels, online and offline, they spend over 20% more than people who only use one. So it's not just about points. It's about understanding customer behavior, personalizing offers, and keeping people engaged across the whole ecosystem.
Okay, this kind of growth, the omni-channel complexity, it must need some serious muscle behind the scenes. Infrastructure, technology. What's powering all this?
Yeah, absolutely. A really key development here is a huge new distribution center. They broke ground in 2024. It's 49,000 square meters, Class A standard, should be up and running in Q3 2025. And it's not just big, it's their largest ever capital investment. And get this, it's going to be the first distribution center in Central Asia to get Green Building Certification, EDGE certification. That means things like projected 41% energy savings, 22% water savings compared to typical buildings. They're using CO2 refrigeration systems, putting solar panels on the roof, aiming for 1 megawatt peak initially, maybe up to 3 later. That's a massive statement about efficiency, but also sustainability.
A Green Building certified DC in Central Asia. That's definitely significant. Must have been challenging, though, investing that much upfront when competition is heating up.
For sure, it's a big bet. There are definitely challenges finding the right materials locally, maybe higher initial costs, training staff on new tech.
Right.
But the payoff, they clearly believe, is there. Lower running costs long-term, obviously. But also, it boosts their brand image, attracts investors who care about ESG, maybe appeals to younger, more environmentally aware customers. It aligns them with global standards. And on the tech side, they've got ISO 27001 for information security. They're working on another one, ISO 27032 for cybersecurity and data privacy. Shows they're taking that seriously. They're also trying out self-checkouts in some Tashkent stores. Apparently, customers are liking it. It's boosting efficiency, so they plan to roll it out more widely. And the loyalty app we mentioned, it does more than points. Personalized discounts, helps you claim tax refunds, offers buy now, pay later options, all about making it easy and modern.
And how does all this connect back to getting products on the shelves? Especially fresh stuff, which is always the big advantage claimed by traditional markets.
Right, they're directly tackling that perception. The supply chain is getting a major overhaul. That new DC is key. It'll be able to service their next 500 stores. That means way fewer direct-to-store deliveries from suppliers. More centralized, more efficient, better control over freshness. Plus, they've set up this 24-hour field-to-shelf program for fresh produce. They gather everything at a facility in Fergana, then distribute it quickly. That focus on being ultra-fresh is a huge differentiator, especially for those neighborhood Mahalla stores where people expect good produce.
It definitely sounds like they're thinking way beyond just profits. What about their impact on the community, on the environment? How significant is that, especially for a big company in that region?
It seems pretty significant, and they're aligning with international standards, which is noteworthy. They employ nearly 11,000 people, and they're making a real effort on diversity and development. Get this. 33.5% of their store managers are women. They've even got this EDG assessed certification for gender equality and adopted the UN's women's empowerment principles. In that part of the world, that's a big deal. It sets a standard. They also fund university tuition for employees and their families. Almost 2,000 people supported so far. That's a serious investment back into the community.
That's really impressive, investing in people like that. What about the environmental side, beyond the fancy new DC?
Yeah, it seems pretty broad. They're phasing out ozone-depleting refrigerants, R22 by 2027. New stores get energy-efficient refrigeration systems, saving about 30% electricity. They have a paperless receipt option, save 21 kilometers of paper in a year, apparently. Which sounds small, but it adds up. They recycle over 5,000 tons of waste annually. And they're working with the IFC, that's the International Finance Corporation, on a strategy to reduce food loss and waste. So it's not just one big project, it's trying to embed sustainability across the board. And again, less waste often means lower costs, so there's a business case too.
Okay, lots of ambitious goals,
Mm.
social, environmental. How do they make sure they actually follow through, especially growing so fast in an emerging market? What's the governance like?
That's always the question, isn't it? Accountability. Well, they seem to have put a robust structure in place. There's a supervisory board, two founding directors, but also three independent directors. And these aren't just anyone. They have international retail and tech backgrounds, like someone from Aldi Sud. That brings outside perspective. They've set up 5 dedicated board committees too, looking at audit and risk, capital spending, strategy, nominations and pay, and tech and innovation. So, specialized oversight. Plus, they've signed on to things like the UN Global Compact, an Entrepreneurs Against Corruption Charter, and they've got a whole bunch of ISO certifications: quality, energy, environment, health and safety, food safety. It signals a serious commitment to playing by international rules, which you'd expect is vital for keeping that foreign investment coming and building long-term trust.
Well, looking ahead then, this rapid growth, is it sustainable, especially as the market gets more crowded? Who are the main competitors Korzinka needs to worry about?
Yeah, sustainability is the key question. The market's still very fragmented. Remember, those traditional bazaars are still the biggest competition overall. But in the modern retail space, Korzinka is the leader right now. Biggest selling space, highest brand awareness, like 6 times higher than the next competitor. But yeah, competition is definitely heating up. You've got local chains like Havas, they're a discounter, expanding fast, over 340 stores. And Macro, with around 56 supermarkets. And now international players are showing up. Magnum from Kazakhstan has opened 6 hypermarkets. And Svetofor, a Russian hard discounter, started opening stores in December 2024. So it's getting complex. Different formats, different price points, all fighting for that growing modern consumer.
Okay, so with discounters, supermarkets, hypermarkets all jumping in, what's Korzinka's strategy to stay ahead, beyond just opening more stores in the EDLP?
Well, a really big piece of their strategy seems to be developing their own private label brands. They have 2 main ones, is Korzinka and Kun 365. Right now, they have about 511 different products under these labels across 51 categories. That makes up about 7.6% of their sales. But their plans are much bigger. They're aiming for 1,400 private label products, targeting 20 to 25% of total sales by 2030. That's a classic retail strategy, right? Better margins, unique products customers can only get from you, reinforces value, builds loyalty, it gives them something distinct.
And to hit that kind of scale with private label,
Yeah.
are they relying only on local producers or looking elsewhere?
They're doing both, it seems. Developing local suppliers is definitely a focus. That's important for the local economy, for community relations. But the report acknowledges it's a slower process, challenges with, consistent quality, scaling up production for big contracts. The infrastructure maybe isn't always there yet. So Turkey and China have become really important sourcing locations for them, especially maybe as some international brands pulled back from Russia, creating opportunities. So it's this balancing act. Build local capacity where possible, but use global supply chains to guarantee the scale and consistency they need for that big private label push.
We've covered a lot of ground here, digging into Korzinka's 2024 report. It really is a fascinating picture, a company that's not just a business success, but deeply tied into Uzbekistan's whole economic and social evolution.
It really is a compelling case study, isn't it? When you see that massive 1,000 store target for 2030, the cutting-edge green DC, the strong ESG commitments, the international style governance, all happening in a market where traditional bazaars are still so dominant. It just raises so many questions. How will this push for modernization really change things? Not just shopping habits, but the whole corporate culture, maybe even the cultural identity of Uzbekistan. Could this set a new template for other post-Soviet economies in the region? And, what are the risks? Can they really maintain quality and that cultural connection while growing that fast? It's a fascinating tension to watch.
Definitely leaves you with a lot to think about regarding the future of retail, community, and how tradition meets modernity in emerging economies. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.